What's going on, Bama fans? Welcome to today's edition of Crimson Tide Today with Zack Aitken. Be sure to follow my X and Instagram at ZAitken7 for the latest news related to the show and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Let's start today's opening drive. So, to start today's show, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest recruiting stories in the country. As five-star receiver Monson Sales, he's officially committed to Indiana, choosing the Hoosiers over Alabama, Ohio State, LSU, and Texas. Sales, he made his announcement on the Pat McAfee show this past Friday, and it's ending one of the most closely watched recruitments of the 2027 class. Now, from an Alabama perspective, there's no sugarcoating it. This one stings a little bit. Monson Sales, he wasn't just another highly rated recruit. The 6'5 Indianapolis native, he's considered as one of the top wide receivers in America, and he's ranked the number one receiver by multiple recruiting services. He's an elite athlete with track speed, incredible size, and the ability to stretch defenses vertically while winning contested catches. Anytime Alabama is in the final group for a player of this caliber, the expectation is to have a legitimate shot to land him. It's also worth noting that Sales is originally from the Birmingham area, and he earned the nickname Bama because he was such a big fan of the Crimson Tide as a kid growing up. But there's a little bit more to this story. I feel like this commitment says a lot more about Indiana than it does about Alabama. Indiana, they've been building serious momentum on the recruiting trail, and landing Sales, it was arguably the biggest recruiting victory in program history, and he's widely regarded as the highest rated commitment that the Hoosiers have ever secured. And keeping that in-state superstar at home, that's a massive statement for Kirk Cinetti and his staff. For Alabama fans, I don't think this is a reason to panic. The Crimson Tide are still recruiting at an elite level at the receiver position, and the receiver has typically been one of the stronger positions in the program's history. Alabama made the Final Five and stayed in the race until the very end, but sometimes a recruit chooses a situation that just feels right personally. In this case, staying close to home and becoming the face of Indiana football, it carried a lot of weight for Sales. The reality is that recruiting battles, they're different today. Programs outside of that traditional blue blood tier, they're landing elite players, and that's exactly what happened here. What Alabama has to do now, it's very simple, guys. We just got to keep moving forward. The 2027 class includes receivers Osani Gales and Cedric Simmons, so it's not like the cupboard is bare at the receiver position. Gales is a blue chip prospect that's been climbing the recruiting rankings, and Simmons is a three-star in-state talent that projects to be having great upside after developing for a couple years at the collegiate level. Kalen DeBoer's staff, they've shown they can identify and develop elite caliber position players, especially at wide receiver. So while Alabama is missing out on Monson Sales and it stings, it's not going to be a program-changing loss. Instead, it's a reminder that Indiana is becoming a serious player nationally, and even winning modern recruiting battles in today's football, it's tougher than ever. Sales will officially have to retire that nickname Bama, though, because as Malachi Moore once said, if you ain't wearing crimson, well, you guys know the rest. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. How big of a loss is this for Alabama, and are you guys surprised that Indiana pulled it off? Moving on, as we get closer to Alabama football, everybody's been talking about the strengths of this team, but the defense, it looks loaded with proven talent. The receiver room is deep, and there's plenty of excitement surrounding the quarterback competition. But every championship team, it's going to have its weaknesses. So today, we're going to be answering one simple question. What is Alabama's biggest weakness heading into the 2026 season? In my opinion, it's the big boys up front, the Alabama offensive line. We've seen this story before. I mean, you can overcome injuries, you can overcome a lack of depth at certain positions, but it's incredibly difficult to compete for championships if your offensive line can't control the line of scrimmage. All you have to do is look back at last season. The offensive line struggled throughout the year, and it showed up in the biggest moments. Alabama's running game never consistently found its rhythm. The quarterback was always under constant pressure, and by the end of the season, Ty Simpson, he had taken a beating behind that unit. Statistically, it was one of the least productive rushing attacks that Alabama's ever seen, averaging just over 100 rushing yards per game while allowing more quarterback pressures than any team in the SEC. So now the challenge becomes even bigger. 4 of the 5 starters are gone. Offensive line coach Chris Kaplovich is gone, and several key depth pieces have moved on as well. This is essentially a complete rebuild. To address all of those losses, Alabama attacked the transfer portal, bringing in multiple offensive linemen, and Kalen DeBoer hired Adrian Clem to completely reshape the room in Tuscaloosa. Now, don't get me wrong, there's talent on this roster. Michael Carroll, he's going to be sliding back into right guard, which I believe is his natural position. Jackson Lloyd, he appears to have that locked position at left tackle locked down. And transfer Rayson Nogati, he looks to be a favorite at center. While another transfer, Javen James, he's expected to compete for the right tackle spot. But talent, it doesn't always translate to success. We saw flashes of that during A-Day. The quarterbacks rarely had a clean pocket, the running game struggled to get anything going, and overall, the offensive line, it just looked like a group that's still learning how to play together. Now, to be fair, that's what spring football is all about. Spring football is not the finished product. With so many new faces on the offensive line and a new offensive line coach, growing pains are expected. Chemistry along the offensive line, it takes time, and there's an entire offseason to develop that cohesion. But until this group proves otherwise, it has to be considered Alabama's biggest question mark. But calm down, guys. There is some good news. If new offensive line coach Adrian Clem get this unit playing with some more toughness, better communication, and the physical identity that Alabama fans expect from the offensive line, this offense could take a major step forward. Because if the offensive line improves, everything else around it improves it as well. The running game gets going, the quarterback plays with more confidence, and the entire offense just becomes more dangerous. But if this unit struggles again in 2026, it could ultimately determine just how far Alabama goes in the season. Moving on, the SEC recently announced the player representatives for the SEC Media Days, and Alabama is going to be sending 3 of its veteran leaders, Zabian Brown, Bray Hubbard, and Ryan Coleman Williams. Now, on the surface, this may just seem like another offseason announcement, but if you've been following Alabama football over the years, you know that these selections, they often tell us a lot about how the team views its leaders heading into the season. So let's go ahead and break it down. Alabama is going to be taking center stage at the Media Days on July 22nd in Tampa, where head coach Kalen DeBoer will be joined by Brown, Hubbard, and Williams. First off, I've always thought this event was really cool. I had the opportunity to attend the 2016 and 2017 Media Days as an intern for Montgomery media personalities John Longshore and Barry McKnight, and that was an experience I'll always remember, and I'm very thankful for those guys for giving me that opportunity. All 3 of these players are going to be entering their 3rd season as starters, and they've earned the respect of both the coaching staff and their teammates through consistent production and experience. But what really stands out to me, though, is that 2 of the 3 representatives, they're going to be coming from the secondary. Zabian Brown and Bray Hubbard have developed into leaders on what many to believe is the strongest position group on Alabama's roster heading into 2026. To me, that says a lot about where the football team is right now. There's still a lot of questions regarding, the offensive line that we just mentioned and the quarterback position, but the defensive backfield is expected to be the biggest strength of the team, and sending 2 DBs to the SEC Media Days, I feel like that reflects the confidence that Alabama has in this group. But there's also something more interesting. Historically, being selected to represent Alabama at SEC Media Days, it's always been a strong indicator of who eventually becomes a team captain. Around 65% of Alabama's Media Day representatives, they've gone on to serve as permanent team captains. That's an awesome trend. Under Kalen DeBoer, team captains are voted by the players just before the season begins, and that's a change from the Saban era when captains were selected at the end of their season based off their body of work. Either way, leadership has always meant something in Alabama. Being chosen to represent the Crimson Tide at one of the biggest events of the offseason, it isn't just about answering questions from reporters. It's about representing the program, setting the standard, and showing that your teammates trust you and being one of the faces of the football team. Being selected as a team captain, it also comes with the honor of having your hand and footprints placed at Denny Chimes at the university's campus. I mean, think about it. Being surrounded with the all-time greats like Joe Namath, Johnny Musso, Derek Thomas, it's got to be a dream for all the current Alabama players on the roster. And for me personally, the captain's walk at Denny Chimes, it's not only one of my favorite traditions in Alabama history, I just think it's one of the coolest traditions in all of college football. And if history repeats itself, don't be surprised if Brown, Hubbard, and Coleman Williams are going to be the names we see the team leading down the field in the fall. Wrapping up today's show, we're going to do a player preview, and it's going to be on offensive lineman Michael Carroll. Carroll, he's coming off an outstanding freshman season in 2025. He earned freshman All-American honors and was recognized by the SEC by stepping into a major role as a true freshman. That's impressive by itself, but what's more exciting is that now he's making a move inside to guard, which I think is his natural position. Don't get me wrong, I think Carroll proved that he can absolutely hold his own at tackle, but if you watch this film, I think it's pretty clear that guard is where he belongs. When I watch Michael Carroll, I just can't think but, making the comparison between him and Tyler Booker, I mean, just the size is almost identical. Carroll checks in at 6'6" and around 320 pounds, and he uses every bit of that frame. But it's not just the size with the comparison, it's the mentality. This guy's physical, he's aggressive, he loves to finish blocks, and I just feel like that's the kind of offensive lineman. He's just not satisfied with simply getting his assignment done. He wants to drive defenders into the ground, and he wants to set the tone for the entire offense. What's even more impressive is how well Carroll moves for someone his size. Carroll, he explodes off the line of scrimmage. He gets to the second level with surprising quickness that the offensive line coaches dream about. Now, with this season, it brings even bigger expectations. Alabama's going to be replacing key leaders on the offensive line after losing Caden Proctor and Parker Brailsford. Those guys are massive departures, and someone has to step up, not just with production, but with leadership. That's where Michael Carroll's going to be coming in. Even though he's only a sophomore, Alabama's going to be counting on him to become one of the leaders on the offensive line. He has the experience, he has the talent, and he has the physical tools to anchor the interior and help establish the identity of the offense. This development, it continues the way it did. If it continues the way it did his freshman year, there's every reason to believe Michael Carroll could become the next great Alabama offensive guard and eventually hear his name called early in the NFL draft when he becomes eligible. So, guys, that's going to do it for today's edition of Crimson Tide Today. What topics did I miss that you guys want covered? Leave them down in the comment section, and we'll have it featured in a future episode. Until next time, roll Tide.